Hi, my name is Charlie Weaver. The three issues that I'm going to discuss from the book are going to be dealing with the preparedness of high school students to go to college, the state funding of higher education, and then the idea of students being partial employees. I think these are three of the ones that kind of stuck out for me, and also things I've kind of thought about over time, especially the one dealing with high school preparedness and the funding of schools. So the impact with I guess there's a large disconnect between what colleges are expecting the students to come out of high school knowing and what the students actually come out with. The impact there is that there are more remedial classes that students have to take, which then could delay their educational pursuit, or it could, with some of the new rules for FAFSA or for the state funding or the federal funding for classes, is that if they're not directly related, that could be something that they don't get supported for, and at some point they'll probably start looking at those classes as well, although it could be wrong. So I think there's a large disconnect, even with the dual enrollment and the early college, things like that are out there. I think those are getting better, but that only takes care of a small percentage of the students that are going to either be in those programs and then moving on to college, or that have the opportunity to take those. So I still think there's a large number of students that come out of college that they have been, over time, slowly reducing or making the curriculum less rigorous because of all the state testing that they're trying to get done. I think the state testing is meant to say, oh, you're supposed to know this certain level of skill set, but then they teach to that skill set and not really above it. So there's that disconnect even within the high schools. And then so from the colleges, then it's again, you come out of high school not having as good a preparation as you would have had you had more rigorous of a program. So I think there's a big disconnect there. I think that's a problem that exists. I think the impact there is that some students get into college and then drop out because they find out that they're not qualified, or that it's too difficult because they're not used to it, and there's no mechanism to catch them, no safety net. They're not being hand-fed like they would have been in high school. So I think there's a big issue there. So that creates a drain on the environment, the economy. Now you have all these students that have partial crosses, college debt possibly, or financial debt, and they didn't get anything out of it. And so they've also been, kind of demoralized or have been reduced in their opportunity to proceed through a college environment and try to get a degree. So the state funding, that's been an ongoing thing, I think, across the United States, where everybody's aware that they've been continuously reducing the amount of state supporting the state monies that go to the colleges and universities. It used to be that one of the things I always heard was that they were state supported or state funded, and now they're state supported, and they're just going to be state in name only. That they've also had a lot of things with like the lottery, which was supposed to help all the school systems, including the colleges and everything. And I think the legislature and the politicians have all said, oh, well, we have this big bulk of money, we can start reducing it in other areas, so we don't have to give them that. So they'll get the money from the lottery, which, that's a fickle thing that doesn't have the same amount. They've been reducing that funding over time, so there's some schools that receive very little, some schools that still receive a great deal of funds that are state-oriented. And I think it creates a disconnect between what the people need, what the students need, what the state wants. They still want to maintain control, but they don't want to pay for it. I think UGA is probably a good example where they probably receive a very small amount of their total operating budget from the state compared to what they get from grants and everything else. And then the state comes back and says, oh, well, we want you to do this, and you have to because you get our state funds. At some point they're going to go, no, we don't have to. We don't want your state funds. I think the economy piece there is that, especially in Georgia, we're not acting as a state institution. We're not getting that university system where we can get the benefits of being a large group acting together for the betterment of higher education. Now you're just going to have a lot of schools just fighting over the same resources or the same students. So I think there's some issues there. And the whole idea that at some point what used to be state schools could become private, that would be a very interesting thing to see over time. I would think that they would try to maintain some of the same things, or some of the same programs and entitlements that they had in the past, but once they're not a state institution anymore, it'd be kind of interesting to see how they would react to that. And of course, that could have an impact on the economy as to what they're trying to push as far as students goes, what research they're doing, and how that would impact either the local areas or all the economies that they may serve. So the last thing I was going to talk about was the concept of the partial employee roles of students in relation to college. As I was reading through that at first, I was like, the students aren't really employees. I mean, they're paying to be there. They are a participant for sure. But I did like the idea that when the student starts to look or act as a partial employee, they've transitioned from just being a passive consumer to being more of an active consumer. And I think that's when you become more engaged in the class. There's an opportunity for the professor to not just give out the information, but for it to be a learning process where it's discovered. And I think that's a better way of doing it than just being spoon-fed or having to read something and then go, oh yeah, I understand how that works. There's that whole process of truly learning how it works and understanding the principles underneath of that, which I think makes it that much better. So I think the students get a better understanding. I think that long term, the big impact on that is that the students have a better opportunity to succeed. They learn more. I think the faculty can then learn how to tailor the class towards the students, and they can be more interactive as far as that goes. And then for the economy, I think what happens is the students come out, I think they're better prepared for a job. I think they're better prepared to be lifelong learners, and I think they have a better skill set that they can then utilize when they do get out in the market. So I think that's the impact there on the economy as far as that goes, is in that it allows them to just do a better job when they get out. They're not just sitting there, oh, I have to learn all this new information, where a lot of times, somebody goes through college, they get a degree in business administration or business, and then they get out, and then they have to learn out what that means to do business administration somewhere, or what it has to be a finance manager or a finance person. Now they can be more actively engaged in that, where they still might have to do it, but they might have a better and a quicker understanding or a way of getting up to speed on those skills so that they can then be more productive at work. So thank you. You have a nice day.